Learner's permit.
Learner's permit. Learner's permit.
Learner's permit.
Hello and welcome to the Learner's Permit Podcast, a show where four friends lock themselves in a room and forcefully educate each other on the topics they're most passionate about. Each week, one host selects a subject to educate the other three about in hopes of broadening their woefully narrow horizons. I'm your host, Liam, and this week we're taking a day trip to Interzone as we talk about the 1991 film Naked Lunch. I'm here with my other co-hosts. To my left, I have...
Cody, hello.
And to my right, I have...
The centipedes are getting downright arrogant. Hi, I'm Austin.
We are one man short, the crew today. Unfortunately, Adam is tied up in legal proceedings once again, but hopefully he will be more free soon. How is everybody else doing today?
Hashtag free Adam.
Yes, please. Hashtag free Adam. Free Adam.
Hashtag he's innocent.
Hashtag patriotism. Well, he's not really innocent, but let's not. Well, cut that. How are you doing today, Cody?
I'm doing good today. Yeah.
Just today?
Just today.
What
So
about
far.
other days this week?
Pretty good. I had some interesting stuff occur to me, or like I witnessed a few interesting things this week, but
Yeah? You want to expound on that?
well, wait, hold on, Austin. How are you doing today?
Oh, I'm good. I didn't have a lot of time to do stuff this morning, which is perfect. I just woke up and left.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. So, and then I got here and we had coffee, so I'm good.
Yeah.
You were here nice and bright and early this morning.
No, I was 10 minutes late.
Well, I was almost 20 minutes late.
I know. I was
I
surprised.
left my phone and my wallet at my house. So,
Hell yeah.
I need the wallet so I can pay you guys to not be mean to me on that.
You have enough for 45 minutes.
I do.
We'll see if we make it through.
I'm covered for a short period.
Yeah, so my story was on Friday morning. I show up to a job site before my boss by like a minute. And this whole thing happened in like maybe 45 seconds. It was weird.
You ate a hot dog in that time?
I can. We'll get to that at some point.
We already got to that, actually.
Oh, yeah. We did already get to that. We're recording these out of order. So I pull up and like it's in this little cul-de-sac and I'm trying to go around in like the little circle. And this woman is in her car and her son is outside. He must be like 9 or 10. And I'm like, oh, this is whatever. I can just wait. And like she's like kind of like getting snippy with him. And he's kind of like being like oddly calm about it, which is weird for a 9-year-old to be like level-headed compared to like a mother. So she leaves and she goes to the stop sign at the end of the street and the kid's walking by. And I'm like, all right, well, I don't want to pull up right next to the kid. And I don't want to like seem like I'm going to fucking kidnap this child. So I'm just going to like sit back for a minute. And like he ended up walking up to the stop sign and I pulled up to the house that I needed to get to. And then I'm like on my phone. I open up Fallout Shelter because I'm playing that again. And I'm like, okay, whatever. No big deal. I'm like, okay, yeah. Collect water, collect all this stuff. Ooh. Have you ever played Fallout Shelter?
No, what's that?
It's like a mobile game and it's like just manage all your.
You know what? I
Vault
think
Brothers.
I downloaded that for like one day and then I was like, this is dumb. This is a waste of my time.
It's just like, it's really fun for like, just like if you're on
Yeah, it's one of
vacation.
those like idle games, right? You set up a shelter and build it bigger and stuff. I get the gist of it.
Yeah. So I pull that up and I'm like, oh, I gotta bring my dwellers back. Ooh. And then I fucking look up and the mom literally peels out at the end of the street from the stop sign in her RAV4. And I'm like, they can do that. And then
RAV4s or moms?
RAV4s.
Okay. Just
Moms can definitely peel out. Adam would know. Anyway, so the kid starts walking back towards, I'd assume like his house or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Oh, he didn't go with her.
No.
Oh,
She like fucking left without him.
what the fuck?
And I was like,
As one
okay.
does.
Yeah, right.
Well, look, and you have a shitty son.
Or you're a bad mom. Anyway, so he's walking back to like his house and she comes fucking flying back in. And I'm like, oh, what the fucking like slams on the brakes, screeches. It's like 7:30 in the morning, by the way. And she screeches to a halt and she's like, you get back in this fucking car right now. And the kid's like, you need to apologize to me right now. What you did was so disrespectful. That's so fucking rude and everything. And the mom like starts to get out of the car, but she hadn't put it in park yet.
Oh my God.
So she like opens the door and tries to step out and then realizes that she didn't. So like the car stops moving and she puts it in park or whatever. And she gets out of the car and the kid's like backing away. And I'm just in my car like, what the fuck is happening?
Yeah, that's
So this kid is like backing away and the mom like grabs him by the arm. And I'm like, and she's like opens the back door. She's like, get in the fucking car right now. And she like mom strengths him.
Fuck yeah.
And fucking throws him into the back seat. And I'm like, oh, and this little kid's like putting his fucking feet on the door to try to like not let it shut.
Good luck with that, you little wimp.
And I'm like, well, kid, you could just go out the other side of the door.
yeah.
You don't think of these things when you're a kid.
No. And I'm like, do I just sit here? What do I do?
Wait, so she left knowing he wasn't in the car, or
Yeah.
she got? So what?
I have no
Okay.
idea. I don't know the context. I didn't hear what they were saying before or anything,
Yeah.
but then she like shut the car door.
So we can tell by the way she was driving that she was a mom, but you don't know if she was his mom.
Reckless
Yes.
endangerment, mom.
What I would say is that the amazing part about this is that perhaps someday, 10 years down the line, that kid's going to be listening to some shitty podcast and he's going to hear a memory. He's going to hear a story that's going to jostle it out of his memory that he had this traumatic incident with his mother.
I don't think he's going to forget this traumatic incident.
You never know. Might bring up bad. So to that kid, if you listen to this years later, I'm so sorry.
I'm sorry.
Or right now,
Also,
if
do
you-
something better with your time because if you're going back and listening,
I'm sorry, buddy. I wish I had done something.
He could be
Yeah.
neglecting his homework and
how does
listening
it feel
to it
to be
right now.
a complacent bystander?
I was just too in shock. I was kind of, I was like, what the fuck is going on? I was
You're
so,
like, I can't stop playing Fallout Shelter. I'll lose all my progress.
I was like, oh no, a Deathclaw attack.
Well, that's something, Cody. You really would you normally have intervened in that situation?
If it wasn't like a mom and a kid,
but you didn't know it was a mom and a kid. You just knew it was a woman and a child.
you're right.
Wow.
Damn, I watched a literal kidnapping.
And you call yourself a good person.
not a white van. Surprised.
They don't do it like that anymore.
They don't? No. Oh, fuck.
What have they upgraded to?
What does Joey Chestnut drive?
Oh yeah, we are gonna talk about that, aren't
No,
we?
we
already
already did
did.
talk about it. That's actually a callback that I just made to a joke I already made
Wait, when did we talk about it?
when we did the episode on
when we did my
the hot
episode.
dog eating competition.
When we talked about Kobayashi and Joey Chestnut.
When we did it before this, you know?
Okay.
Yep, we already
I'm
did
on
it.
the same page now.
Anyway, yeah. So that sort of traumatic stuff is a good segue to get into what we're talking about today.
William Tell.
Yeah, our old William Tell act, you know. So I made you guys watch a movie, probably the most normal movie that we've watched so far, I would say.
I don't think that's true.
What would you say is the most normal
Phantom
movie?
Menace.
We didn't. No, I wouldn't say so. That movie's too racist to be normal.
Dude, that movie is
This
way
movie-
more normal than this.
This movie is
know.
also racist.
I think this movie is less racist than The Phantom Menace. But also it's entrenched in a certain time period and basing on a source material that contains
Real
a
life.
multitude of horrible things. And I have that source material here right on the table. And I might pass it around. You guys can take a look at it.
I wish you had told me because I think I would have also listened to the audiobook too.
It wouldn't have done you any good.
No.
I'll tell you that right now. So this movie is ostensibly about an exterminator whose wife starts abusing the bug powder that they use to kill bugs. And then he starts seeing things or weird things start happening to him. And he eventually gets conscripted into some kind of secret agent service and travels to Interzone, which is Tangiers. That's basically he's in the
thought it was
international zone.
Morocco-ish.
Yeah, well that is what
Oh,
it
it
is.
is?
Yeah, the
Okay.
international zone. I mean, it's called Interzone.
Yeah.
It's the Tangiers International Zone.
Oh, okay.
Was the actual historical area in the real world.
Okay. This takes place in the 1950s too, right?
Yeah, I think based on all of their clothes and like everything that they have, I think it's probably based in the 50s or the 40s. I'd say 50s. If you're
Okay.
talking real world events, then
I think
would
it says
be-
53.
Yeah, it would be 50s that he would have been there. But anyway, this is context. Before I give more context, though, Austin, I wanted to ask you, what do you remember happening in this movie? Because you said something before we started recording that seemed to indicate to me that you thought it ended much earlier than it did. And I
Yeah.
think you might have fallen asleep halfway through the movie and woken up to the credits.
Yeah, I tried to rewatch what I had missed a couple of times and kept falling asleep because and this alarmed you when I described it this way. This movie was very dry. Like I usually like
It's a very wet movie to be.
It is
Clear.
a very wet movie.
I usually like things that are crazy like this, that are like an exploration of a psyche or whatever. Like, I'm a huge Silent Hill guy. I like Jacob's Ladder. Jacob's Ladder really influenced Silent Hill. But to me, everything that happens in those has like a thing or a parallel, and it kind of makes sense, at least later. And I kept waiting for that to happen, and it never came up for me. Now, like you said, I did fall asleep, so there might have been important things that I missed. It was just so difficult for me to latch on to what was going on.
If you had to give an overall like plot,
okay,
beat by beat, just like real quick, because I just want to know where the movie ended in your conception of
so
things.
I'll read you the note that I had last jotted down, which is RoboCop and the Mujahideen collab to write a story.
Okay,
That I kept trying to find out if there's a different meaning to the Mujahideen other than the group of fighters in Afghanistan, and I wasn't able to find one. So I didn't know if that, when he's talking about the typewriter, if that's like an actual fucking, like, did someone just name their typewriter after the rebel? And then if it does happen in the 40s or the 50s, then that doesn't really make any sense, because as far as I know, that group didn't come about until like the late 70s, early 80s. So that really weirded me out. I actually spent a long time trying to figure out what the fuck was going on with that. So I missed part of the movie, like Googling stuff, trying to find it. I was like, oh, so that's my Mujahideen typewriter. I'm like,
you mean you were so caught up with the
with
name
the wording,
they used for the?
Yes, I was so distracted by that. But basically, yeah. So he's the exterminator. People kept saying he accidentally killed his wife. It looked very intentional to me, and he was told by the bugs to kill.
We'll get into it.
Yeah,
we'll get into it.
So, yeah, but that's basically the synopsis of up to that point. Is what last I took notes, and then there was like a part, the dude was getting eaten by a thing in the cage. It looked like,
oh yeah, the birdcage thing.
It looked like a
okay. So you
the
did see some of it. But
yes, these are things that I like woke up to,
because you you see, you were like, yeah, the movie ends with the typewriter laughing at him.
Well, because the last attempt that I tried to watch back to,
okay,
that's what I woke up to, and I remember there being credits.
There weren't.
There were no credits.
No. That's
Maybe
like the middle of the movie, or the almost near the beginning of the movie, frankly, when he first interacts with the typewriter. Or it depends on which typewriter, I guess, because he got multiple throughout the movie.
And there's several, and then it eats one of them, right?
Yes, he brings another typewriter into. We're getting all over the place, but you missed the ending, which I think is important.
Mm-hmm. We'll get to that later, though.
We will get to that. Yeah.
One of my first notes I wrote down is that it was like 3.5 minutes of fucking opening credits.
It was really long.
It was so goddamn long.
I actually really love that opening. I miss opening credits, like animated credit sequences like that, though. This one wasn't like particularly fancy in any way, but I just like, I wish we still had that of just like static opening credits, animated sequences.
I also like jazz.
Yeah.
I hated the jazz in this fucking movie.
Do you like jazz?
What do you mean you hated the? You mean you hated the score to the film?
Yeah, I hated it.
Oh, okay.
It was, well, I don't know if it was because of the audio mixing that was part of the movie.
Yeah, well, the version you were watching a movie, it said it was pretty quiet.
Oh, it was so quiet.
Yeah.
I couldn't.
Yeah, I had to have it on max volume, actually.
Yep.
Sorry about that. I don't know. I had watched it originally when it was streaming, but it wasn't on any streaming service, so we had to find a copy elsewhere on a different website, which we're not going to do here. But
it was not. It was so quiet, and I was like, I feel like I'm missing half of the dialogue in this movie, and it was terrible.
Yeah.
Not the movie, just the way
you
that
like the music, you said.
No, sometimes it felt like because everything was so quiet and you had to turn everything up that it felt like I was going to blow my fucking ears listening to this.
Well, and there were parts that I did blow out my ears.
Yeah, and I was like, this is just a fucking audio nightmare.
But that's more of the website's problem than
that wasn't. I don't think that was. There's not an issue I remember from my initial viewing of the movie, so I think that was just a mixing of the particular file. But I want to give a little background on this movie. Just to give context, Cody already knows a little bit. He told me this movie is based on a book, which I actually have here. It's called Naked Lunch. Typical. It's by a guy named William S. Burroughs. I don't know if you're familiar with William S. Burroughs.
Not by name. I was going to say not by name, but
are you guys familiar with the Beats? The Beat Generation. Probably learned about them in high school English class.
No.
English was not my strong suit.
Not off the top of my head. Are these like the Grapes of Wrath era?
No, well, no, know. So they were around in the 50s, and they were a group of writers that had a big impact and like huge influence on 60s counterculture. There are three of them in particular that are the big names that everybody knows, and that's Allen Ginsberg. Recognize that name?
Yeah.
It does, but it's not coming to me.
He has a poem called Howl that is very famous.
Moving Castle.
What?
Moving Castle.
And Jack Kerouac. You guys know the name Jack Kerouac?
Again,
all
sounds
these,
familiar.
all these
called
names
On
I
the Road.
know. Yeah.
Yeah, all these things you know. Yes. So these guys were writers, and they were all like a group of friends, basically. And William S. Burroughs was the third. And they had a big influence on art, culture, writing, all of this stuff. In my opinion, it's astounding. I don't know where culture must have been at the time for these guys. I mean, maybe it's just a thing of genius in general. You have to be crazy or just horrible in some way to make something noteworthy. I genuinely am baffled because...
Well, I mean, it's all post-World War II at this point.
Yes, and actually 2 out of 3 of the people I just named, William Burroughs and Jack Kerouac, were both in military service. But I think William Burroughs enlisted, but then he didn't get officer rank or something. I forget what it was specifically, but he enlisted and then was despondent because he was just infantry. So his mom... Oh, that's one thing I should mention. William Burroughs and Allen Ginsberg both came from money.
Okay.
So William Burroughs'
Must be
grandfather is a guy who invented I think it was called the adding machine. It was basically like it was like a cash register, an early prototype of a cash register, basically just like a teller machine to help people add up totals for sales.
I thought you were going to say abacus.
So his family had a lot of money. And when he was in the military, his mom basically paid for a therapist to be like, oh yes, he has a history of depression, so he could get out of military service.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Because he was upset that he didn't get
His
higher
way.
rank. Yeah.
Classic.
Which is-
People from money didn't get in their way.
Weird to me because he should have known if you're going to enlist that you can't just become an officer. Well, okay. During a time of war, there are instances where you can become an officer. It wouldn't happen in today because we haven't been in an actual war since World War II. Like all the other things have been conflicts, so you can't do it. But in a wartime environment like World War II, you could get a battlefield commission, but as soon as you leave wartime, you get demoted back to whatever your enlisted rank was. So it would be strange for him to think that he could be promoted to be an officer
He enlisted after Pearl Harbor. And from what I understand, he was just dejected that he did not become an officer after enlisting, which is like
weird. I mean, I don't think that they had the green to gold program at that point. Like, especially during a wartime, I don't think they would be investing in people going green to gold, really. But yeah, that's strange. I don't know.
So he then attended Harvard in an arts program. And when he graduated, he was given an allowance by his parents of about $200 per month.
In what year?
1936 is when he graduated.
That's like $3,000.
No, Austin, actually, it's $4,558.55.
Oh my God.
In today's money. Can you imagine getting fucking $4,500 per month just to do whatever you want?
Just to exist.
Oh man, that'd be cool. Anyway.
And that's post-tax.
Why is allowance taxable income?
I mean,
It's a gift.
No, well, only if it's over $600, right?
Then yes.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So yeah.
But, sorry, I was thinking about, well, no, because back then, because it's $200.
Was the IRS a thing back then?
The Treasury Department was. I know that. Yes, IRS was a thing because that's how the
Fuck
ATF
the
started.
IRS. Hey, stop taking my fucking money. Can you not? I hate you. I hope
I don't
everyone
agree
in
with
that
Cody
office.
take more of Cody's money.
The ATF started in the Treasury Department. That's why that's why it's tax. It's an ATF or an NFA tax. They just shifted into law enforcement, quote unquote, later down the road. I'm not even shitting you. That's where they started.
Fuck the IRS.
Well, I find all of this riveting. But so this is based on a book by William S. Burroughs, the guy that I just mentioned. I'll give more background on William Burroughs. But the movie that we watched was made in 1991, and it was directed by David Cronenberg. You guys know that name? You know any other movies by David Cronenberg?
Not off the top of my head.
You ever seen The Fly with
Oh yeah,
Jeff Goldblum?
terrifying.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a Cronenberg. One of his other famous ones, Videodrome.
I haven't seen that
Don't
one.
know that one.
That's a very famous one. So he's a guy that does a lot of body horror. Oh, Scanners. You guys ever seen Scanners?
No, I haven't.
Oh, okay. Well, Cronenberg likes to do a lot of body horror. He's a big director in the 80s. And there were a couple versions of this movie because Burroughs was trying to get a movie adaptation made for quite some time. And a couple different versions sort of happened or were going to happen, but just didn't for different reasons. So there was a movie that had a version that had Stanley Kubrick attached, which would have been interesting.
Insane.
Certainly.
There was also Stanley Tucci for a second.
Stanley Tucci was attached. No, but there was also a musical version, which would have starred Mick Jagger. What the fuck? With a script that would have been directly adapted or was directly adapted by Burroughs, which I would love to have seen that version of it. Cause what? It might have been fitting, honestly. I don't know. Eventually, they were kind of looking around for somebody to direct it, and some producer, I don't remember the name, saw one of Cronenberg's films and was basically like, do you want to try to direct this? They show William Burroughs Cronenberg's work, and he's like, wow. And so then Cronenberg goes and writes a script and shows it to Burroughs, and, has all the design ideas, and Burroughs is like, you're the only guy with the vision to make this movie. And Cronenberg's basic approach is to make a movie adaptation of this book, we got to throw out the book. We got to just throw out the book. And why?
How does that make any sense?
Because this book is not a traditional book. There's not a cohesive...
Does it tell you to go read like another book to get insight on something?
There's not a cohesive structure to this book. This book is what I would call junkie scrawl.
What the fuck does that mean?
Well, okay. Let me give you more background on Burroughs to maybe understand a little bit.
He is a junkie. Or was.
Yes.
Oh, I'm
actually.
sorry. I'm thinking too much about this. Yeah, like something that he wrote while he was just fucking off his mind.
This is like a semi-autobiography.
Yeah, well, I kind of got the idea.
The book isn't a semi-autobiography, but the movie is essentially Cronenberg's take on a biographical film about William S. Burroughs.
Okay.
So it pulls elements from the book. So Interzone, even that talk about a guy whose asshole takes over him, where he has that monologue where he's in the car. He's like,
oh yeah,
that's from the book. I think that might even be directly quoting from the book. Mugwumps, all this stuff. It's all stuff from the book, but the book is just sort of a jumbled amalgam of a bunch of different chapters talking about weird, fucked up shit, basically. But William Burroughs was first and foremost a junkie. He was like the most insufferable gay junkie that you have ever heard of. And honestly, the more I read about him, the more I was like, holy fuck, like this guy is possibly one of the worst and most interesting people I've read about. But I get why he has been such an influential cultural icon, because he has a very interesting life story. So after he graduated from Harvard, he sort of went around to various places. He went to the European Union for a while. He went to Germany to go be a little gay when they were okay with that stuff. Well, eventually he followed some of his friends to New York. And that's where he met Jack Kerouac and Allen Ginsberg, who were the other members of the Beat Generation. And he also met a woman who would then become his common law wife later on down the line, named Joan Vollmer. And I don't know if you remember in the movie, William Lee, which, by the way, is a previous pen name of William Burroughs, William Lee. His wife's name is Joan in the movie.
I only remember Bill's name. I was like struggling trying to keep track of everybody else.
Yeah.
Kiki is Zac Efron.
Kiki is not Zac Efron. Zac Efron was, I don't know how old during the
No. And Austin, like for Austin.
The guy that I immediately thought was
yeah, not actually Zac Efron.
Yes. So anyway, shortly after moving to New York, Burroughs got hooked on, only the coolest drug in the world, heroin.
Dude, let's go.
The most fun drug in the world. And Joan Vollmer, the woman who would become his common law wife, she had a different drug of choice. She was very into amphetamines. Specifically, she was very into Benzedrine, which was an over-the-counter methamphetamine inhaler.
Oh, dude. Was it Jet?
What was it for?
Oh, sinuses, boredom. Imagine living in the era where you could just get an over-the-counter methamphetamine inhaler.
Yeah, that's wild.
How would you live your life in that scenario?
Probably much the same as I do today. It would just be weird.
Rocking that inhaler.
Yeah. Just constantly.
Yeah.
Imagine if you're like asthmatic and you're like, I'm having an asthma attack.
Oh my God. And you grab methamphetamine instead.
It's so funny to me because Joan was married at the time, and like her husband was a GI who was out on active duty. And when he came home, he was like, well, shit, I'm divorcing you. Your friends suck and you are hooked on these methamphetamine inhalers. Goodbye.
Yeah.
I wonder why.
Well, I just like picturing these people in my mind because I've only seen pictures of them. I watched an interview of William Burroughs and when he was an old man. But at that point, you've drank so much. But like picturing these people in my mind when they were this age, they were like, in their late 20s, like probably like almost 30 years old. I think Kerouac and Ginsberg were a little younger. I think they were like 23 or something at the time. But picturing them all just in a dirty ass room doing their different drugs. Now, I know you guys ever done drugs? You guys ever done drugs?
No.
Of any kind?
The weeds, bro.
You've done the weeds?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was also prescribed like Adderall and all this stuff as a little kid, but like other than that, no.
Yeah. Me too. I've never done drugs. I've never done drugs of any kind. But in my conception and all the hard research that I've done in my sober life, I have really realized that having someone in the room who's on meth talking to someone in the room who's on heroin would probably not be a very good time. The conversational abilities between the two, large disparity. That's all. That's all. Methamphetamine kind of makes you want to talk a lot, from what I've heard. And heroin kind of makes you want to not. So I'm just trying to picture a conversation between it. It's funny because Joan Vollmer and William Burroughs, they were kind of set up by Allen Ginsberg, another famous gay man and NAMBLA advocate.
I missed what that last thing you said.
NAMBLA?
NAMBLA?
The North American Man-Boy Love Association.
Oh, that dude went to Thailand.
No, he was in North America. For the North American Man-Boy Love Association. Pro.
Wow.
The organization.
Dude, just tell me where they're at. I'll kill them all, dude. I'm going. I'm down. Let's go.
Well, I think Allen Ginsberg's already dead, so you missed the boat on that one. But
okay, but there's still like some cronies running around, right? Like,
I'm sure you could look up NAMBLA. I'm sure you could find NAMBLA if you wanted to. But we don't advocate violence on the show at all. Definitely not.
Yeah, I'm totally endorsing that. Go ahead, do it.
I'm with
Get
Austin.
on that shit.
I'm with Austin on this one.
Well, anyway, Allen Ginsberg was that's not slander, and he's dead. That's just a fact. He was a vocal about his love of boys.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So here's my thing about these people, the Beats, right? I know we came here to talk about a movie, but
no, it's fine, dude.
We'll get to the context of the movie, but I really just want to talk about these people because it's wild that these people were such a big influence is insane to me. Allen Ginsberg, I understand because he wrote a lot very openly about homosexuality, and so did Burroughs. Burroughs was gay. I mean, I don't know how you would label it, but he was gay. But he married
bisexual.
He didn't really have like a romantic. I don't know how you characterize it because he was very actively engaging with men while he was with Joan Vollmer.
Well, and he wanted to be an officer in the army, so he's gay.
I got it.
Oh yeah, that's true. He's
just gay. I got it. He has relationships with women and sex with men.
Newsflash. That means you're a gay junkie in the 50s. Good point, Cody. Good point.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, but just these people are so grimy, and there's so many problems with this. So, they're in New York, right? Joan Vollmer and William Burroughs are in New York. I think they moved to Mexico City. They have we'll get there. We're moving too fast.
Sorry.
They have legal troubles in New York. William Burroughs has legal troubles in New York. I believe he falsifies a prescription. So they flee to New Orleans. And they move to New Orleans.
No one cares if you falsify.
So they go to New Orleans, and unfortunately, William Burroughs gets pulled over by the police while in his car. And they find an unregistered firearm along with a letter from Allen Ginsberg implicating them in the sale of marijuana.
Hell yeah.
So the cops get
no
a warrant.
registry for firearms. So how would they know, unless it was used in a previous crime and was listed as stolen, or there is no registry for firearms. The only registry there is NFA. So you can do a firearms trace and find out if you find a gun at a crime scene, then you can go back to the manufacturer and that's how you find out who it was given to. But there's not a firearms registry, if that makes sense.
In New Orleans specifically?
Yeah, well, just in general. So I think except for Massachusetts, they require you to register firearms. But Louisiana, I mean, back then I'd have to
got their own laws.
To see. Well, yeah. So each state has their own law, but
no, I mean, they have their own legal system. So Louisiana has a whole different legal system. I don't know their specific stuff, but when I was reading up on this, they said they found an unregistered firearm along with notes saying, sale of marijuana.
Weird to me because I don't know that there was any state that had a registered. We're getting too into the weeds.
If you want to go and do that research and get back to me,
I do
feel
actually.
free. We'll have a conversation about it. I would love to know. But anyway, so they raid his place. They raid his house in New Orleans, and they find like half a dozen more guns and his drug stash. He's facing up to like 5 years in prison in New Orleans because they got that Gator law, that French Louisiana Gator law. And
they say gay law.
I heard gay law too.
they do have that gay law too. It's
So,
pretty
like-
gay in New Orleans. But anyway, so he's like, look, Joan, peace. I'm going to Mexico City. Follow me in like a month. So he goes to Mexico City, and then Joan Vollmer follows with their kids. Well, one of them is his stepdaughter, I think, and then they have a son together.
Oh, so he had a relationship with this woman.
Yeah, I mean, he had a relationship, but it's hard to gauge because all of his writing is ostensibly. I mean, if you wanted to count how many pages in the book are about gay sex acts, feel free. I don't know if you want to take a look.
You can have
Flip to
a
any
very
page.
hollow, non-loving relationship with someone you have children with. Like
Yes, especially
there's
back then, you know, and if you were a gay man in a time where being gay was quite literally illegal.
Yeah.
Like punishable by the law.
yeah,
You would conform to a regular life of settling down with a woman. I mean, most of the time you'd settle down with a woman and have a child.
yeah.
Probably. So they moved to Mexico City and he's out living it up. He's withdrawing from heroin because he can't get heroin in Mexico City. But
Is this where I'm having withdrawals from a drug that doesn't even exist comes from?
yes and no. Yes and no. So he's withdrawing from heroin while in Mexico City, and Joan Vollmer's just getting drunk as fuck because she feels abandoned in a country and forced to go there, like reasonably so.
Right.
And so she's getting very resentful and, you know, like actively spiteful towards him and mocking him verbally. And he's out living it up, having gay sex. And I think he's hit the meth inhalers at this point too, you know, trying to come off the heroin.
Stop at the CVS. Get
Yeah,
the
stop at the
inhalers.
CVS, get the Mexican version. One night they're having a party, a house party with two of the other people that live in the house that they live in, and they get into an argument. I think he says, "Oh, it's time for our old William Tell act," and he takes
that's where
his
that
gun
comes
out
from.
and he shoots her, and she dies instantly. Oh, and their child was in the room too and witnessed this,
Awesome.
which is cool, really cool. So anyway, he's now in Mexico facing murder charges. He insists that he had 10 or so drinks and he doesn't remember anything. And then other people are like, they had 2 small glasses of alcohol. When you've cooked your brain on drugs for so long, like whatnot, and I'm sure you go through this thing where you do something crazy and then you're like, I'm crazy. But he murdered the
that's
mother
exactly
of
how
his
that
child.
works.
Right.
Yeah. So obviously this is reflected in the movie, in the beginning. And also you did not see the end, but the movie begins and he is working as an exterminator, which is something that William Burroughs actually did for a time. And it depicts the William Tell incident between the main character and his wife. And that's the sort of catalyst for him to move to Interzone.
Yeah.
Now in real life, Burroughs was stuck in Mexico City because he was facing murder charges. Luckily, he had a rich family. I don't know if you remember from earlier. That
Yep.
nice $4,500 a month, so you don't have to work or do anything, and you can buy drugs.
Must be nice.
That money can also buy you a great Mexican lawyer, and you can pay that great Mexican lawyer a bunch of money to bribe people and create
Sweep
false
everything under the rug.
witnesses,
Yep.
which is exactly what they did. Bribe the judge, bribe ballistic experts.
Jesus
Yeah.
Christ.
Yep. He was held on murder charges for about 13 days before he was released with bail. His story at first was that he dropped the gun and it misfired.
Yep.
Then he changed it to say that he accidentally, that was his second story after saying it was the William Tell incident and it was an accident. Then he said it misfired. Then he said it accidentally misfired while he was reloading it and it hadn't been fired in 3 months. So he didn't realize that there were rounds in the chamber.
Alec Baldwin took notes, dude. He took fucking notes
Is
from
this
this guy.
similar?
The whole time he was just like, I didn't do anything. And it's
He's
like,
been acquitted.
yeah, I know. And
Yeah.
it's bullshit. It's literally, look, I won't derail it, but it's physically
Yeah.
impossible for
Look,
that gun to go off without
Whatever you
pulling
may
the
feel
trigger.
about the Baldwin situation, Austin, I would like you to admit that there is a stark difference between this situation and that one.
I'm just saying the way that he's like retelling his story and then saying that he's absolved from.
But this is a case where 2 heavy drug addicts going through withdrawal who were actively quarreling with each other got into an incident where one of them murdered the other and then had 4 different stories. He ended up being charged with criminal negligence, which had a maximum sentence of 5 years in Mexico City. But he didn't really want to face that because wouldn't that suck, right?
Would he still get his allowance in prison?
That's a good question. I don't know.
Does just stack
transfer
up
to the commissary? He can buy a lot of Cheetos with that.
Yeah, right.
Did Cheetos exist back in the 1950s?
I don't know, actually. That's a good question. Probably not. Probably not in the capacity they do now. They definitely weren't as good if they did. Bro, we got that modern.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't have
MSG.
Doritos until like
This is true.
70 or 80 something. I think late 70s Doritos came around.
So I found a sentence.
Okay, yeah, please read one.
This is from page 113.
And pass it to Austin after you so he can film it too.
It says every lover had his special theme song, which was perfect for him and rose to his climax.
Oh, that's nothing. That's tame as hell.
That's like the second page I opened to, and I was like, I'm just looking for, that's the sex that passes the censor, squeezes through between bureaus. This fucking writing is awful. I hate this. Here.
Are we just finding passages that we like?
Yeah, feel free to just flip through it. So I actually like it in a weird way.
Yeah.
You can't read it like a normal book. You can't think of it expecting there's going to be some narrative. I think it is very flawed, but let me give you, we'll get to the background on the book. I know I'm taking forever to get to my point here, but
the first sentence I read had, he got clap in his ass. And then not only that, I've tried to find the beginning of the sentence. It's the longest sentence I've ever seen in my whole life.
Yeah.
Let's see if I could. Yeah. He had been trapped between floors in an elevator for 5 days with an oil burning junk habit and sustained an attack of DTs while stowing away in a footlocker. Okay, that's a normal sentence.
Is that a normal sentence?
Well, so it's like structure wise.
Yeah.
Not a normal sentence in content. But then there was a time he collapsed with, I'm having trouble reading today. He collapsed with strangulated intestines, perforated ulcers, and what the fuck? Peritonitis in Cario, and hospital was so crowded. What is happening? And the Greek surgeon goofed and sewed up a live monkey in him, and he was gang fucked by an Arab attendant, and one of the orderlies stole the penicillin subsiding flush. What the fuck? And I
told you, any page.
Yeah.
Any page.
And it continues. The amount of semicolons in here, and the time he got clap in his ass, and a self-righteous English doctor cured him with an enema of hot sulfuric acid, and the German practitioner of technological medicine who removed his appendix with a rusty can opener and a pair of tin snips. (Parentheses. He considered the germ theory a nonsense. Close parentheses. Flushed with success, he then began snipping and cutting out everything in sight. The human body is filled up. Oh, he's doing an accent. Okay. The human body is filled up with unnecessitated parts. You can get by with one kidney. It's so hard to read this with the way he's writing this accent. Why have two? Yes, dot is a kidney. And inside parts should be so close in together, crowded. They need what the fuck is that? Lebanenstrom, like the Vetterland. What is this?
See, it's not just me that has trouble reading this. It is written very weird.
Well, and he started writing in an accent.
Yeah.
So I couldn't.
Well, there's probably context to that.
There was no context to that. He was talking about getting clap in his ass, and then fucking a German doctor stole penicillin or something.
Well, see, but then sometimes it's like pretty normal. Like here, talking about somebody with an appointment with Dr. Benway, who is a character in the book.
Yes.
And a sadistic one at that.
Yes. And in the movie.
Yes. Well, the movie, okay, so we talked a little bit about the incident with William Tell. I want to read a quote from William Burroughs about the William Tell incident. So he wrote a letter to Ginsberg in 1954, which was a couple years later. He said, "May yet attempt a story or some account of Joan's death. I think I am afraid, not exactly to discover unconscious intent. It's more complex, more basic, and more horrible. As if the brain drew the bullet toward it."
Oh.
Yeah, how does that quote make you feel?
Not great.
So, again, I have to feel like I have to give context within the context here. William Burroughs also believed in magic his whole life.
Well, do you not?
What?
You don't believe in magic?
He believed we lived in a magical world, and I do ascribe to this belief as well, but I don't know if we would see eye to eye on what that means. I don't believe the magical world makes you shoot your wife.
Chris Angel made me shoot my wife.
In 1993, he joined a chaos magic group called the Illuminates of Thanateros.
Wait, like a
Thanateros.
When you
Thanateros.
when
It
you
is a
describe-
portmanteau of Thanatos and Eros.
when you describe that, it sounds like a Magic the Gathering meeting.
It does sound like a Magic the Gathering meeting, and I
Yeah.
think Thanateros might literally be who knows? It could be
It
a
was
Magic the
banned
Gathering
in most
card.
tournaments. Yeah.
You can't use him as a commander anymore. He's too powerful. They banned him.
You can't use the William Tell Act in Magic the Gathering anymore.
Yep, I tap 3 lands for mana, and I'm going to shoot my wife in the head. But yeah, so he joined that in 1993, and he actually was like well known in the community and regarded for developing multiple techniques, chaos magic techniques. We'll get into this later. I need to get into the stuff that's relevant to the movie because we need to actually talk about it. I'm so sorry for how jumbled this is, but
I
much
love
like
magic,
the book,
though.
much like the book, it's all over the fucking place. This conversation, because this man is fucking wild. This man is insane.
He's got the clap in his ass. That's
He
why.
does have the clap in his ass. He's got the fucking junk in his veins, which is awesome.
He opened the book. What'd you find? Read it. Read a pitch.
Cocks ejaculate in silent yes. The mug bump parts silk curtains, reveals a teak wood gallows against lighted screen of red flint. Gallows is on a dais of Aztec mosaics. Oh, it's about... Wow! Oh, Jesus Christ. Oh, it's the rumpus room. Hassan's Rumpus Room is the name of the... Jesus, I'm not going to read this on microphone. This can't be read. This can't be read on microphone. I'm realizing now that I don't think any of us are comfortable reading most of what we would read in this book.
Yeah.
But that's kind of why I wanted to bring the book along, because it's not the movie. The movie is a much tamer interpretation of a lot of the themes in the book. And that William Tell incident is portrayed in the beginning of the movie, but it's also how the movie ends. So I don't know if you didn't witness this, Austin, because I think you fell asleep before the ending.
Yeah.
Did you witness him encountering Dr. Benway at the end?
No.
Okay,
No, I
so
saw it because
you-
Dr. Benway's the guy that he talks to in the beginning that shows him how to quote unquote
who's
kick the.
mentioned repeatedly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it's Roy Scheider
Yeah.
from Jaws. Yeah, so you should watch the rest of the movie.
I tried to. I'll do it. And what's weird is I started it at 9. It's not like I started it at 11 or anything. It was just
Yeah.
like, not my kind of movie. Was what it was. I'll try to watch the end again.
Once you have the context from what we're going to talk about here, watch it and then let me know what you think, because I'm very curious. I wanted to know what you would think of this movie specifically because it's such an odd thing. Cody, are you okay? What's going on?
No, I'm good. Don't worry about it.
Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay, well, anyway. So yeah, William Burroughs, did he kill his wife on purpose, you guys think?
Yeah.
What do you mean? You don't think it was a ugly spirit, as he called it?
I think that's just his internal
So he's
monologue
possessed
for
by
his wife.
The ugly spirit.
He
Monopolistic, acquisitive evil. Ugly evil. The ugly American.
I mean, he might just be talking about himself.
He did have a way with words. I just think he used it mostly to talk about being high on junk and having sex, doing gross sex stuff. So anyway, after the stuff that happens in Mexico City, I believe he returned to the U.S. for a time, risking getting caught for the charges in New Orleans, which were still valid. But then he decided to go to Tangier, the international zone. And he was there for a period of about 4 years. And he liked it because I think he said he was going to drench himself in vice. He liked it because it was an international zone, he could get away with doing drugs and being gay. And it wasn't a problem, which is good. That's great. You know, that's great that you have the freedom to do that. And it's there that he would write what would become this book, Naked Lunch. And the reason that this book is not a cohesive narrative is because he wrote a lot of these passages while he was all fucked up and mailed them to Ginsberg and Kerouac. And then they eventually came to him in Tangier and met
so
him.
this is like it,
Like
yeah,
in the film,
basically
and they
is
helped
the
him
film.
piece together all the things that they had mailed him into a book. And it doesn't have a cohesive narrative. It doesn't. It's a bunch of things that are sort of loosely connected thematically and, you know, pervertedly. But it's not a story in and of itself. It's a bunch of little stories, vignettes,
Yeah.
gross out scenes, satire, if you want to call it that. So yeah, so a lot of the things that happen in the movie are directly taken from his life. Like the murder in the beginning, the friends coming together. I mean, even the actors that play the two friends, they kind of look like Ginsberg and Kerouac.
Do they?
Yeah, they do. I if you look up pictures, I was like astounded watching it. I was like, wait a minute, like this is very clearly supposed to be you have the little scrawny guy with the curly hair, and then the all American looking guy with the cropped hair. Your Catholic wonder boy. So yeah. One thing that I did think was really funny. What was it that he called him? He called himself the most politically neutral man in Africa.
Just in Africa?
While he was in Tangier. I just think that's the funniest moniker to give oneself.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm the most politically neutral man in Africa.
I hope he introduced himself that way.
I'm going to start introducing myself that way.
But with the in Africa part?
Yeah.
Yeah, because then when you're outside of Africa, you
I'm
can
the
be as
most
politically
politically neutral man in Africa.
That is actually really good. I kind of want to do that.
Another element that was taken from his real life is that he did have a sexual relationship with a teenage boy named Kiki, who did die.
Did he shoot him too?
No. But I don't think he was eaten
that?
by a bug. I can't guarantee you. I assume the relationship was probably abusive, considering Burroughs was a drug addict and a much older man at the time. And also, it was a teenage boy that he was having a sexual relationship with in the
I was just
international
trying to
zone.
skirt over that because we've talked about that enough today.
We're going to talk about it more.
At least he was politically neutral, though.
That's true. He was politically neutral in all ways. So what does Naked Lunch mean as a title?
I don't know. I kept trying to figure that out.
I think he was trying to figure it out too. But the definition that I was able to find that he had given at one point was naked lunch, a frozen moment when everyone sees what is on the end of every fork.
What the fuck does that even mean?
It's hard for me in this position. I feel like you gotta get in the mindset of doing a bunch of heroin and being on a fix.
I don't think I want to get into that mindset.
Look, all I'm saying is from the research that I did, that I read, it's captured very well in the book. The way that he writes is so evocative of this horrific, weird, sort of like ecstasy-filled state that someone is in when they are shooting up heroin and being on drugs and always jonesing for their next fix. I mean, like half of this is about being high on heroin or looking for heroin. I cannot argue for the purity of his prose or the efficacy of any kind of narrative, but just alone in the way that he captures it in the book, it is very accurate. It's kind of wild. And I understand, I'm incredibly impressed with the way that Cronenberg approached the movie adaptation because he had the right idea. You cannot adapt.
Yeah.
He said if you were to adapt this, it would be banned in every country and it would take millions of dollars to make. Like it would cost $1 billion. Which is true, which is very true. And this book was actually the subject of, I think, the last known obscenity trial for a piece of literature in the United States, which is an interesting factoid. What
do you mean by that?
I mean, the publisher got sued or charged with a crime based on obscenity laws.
Damn.
And then they had a whole drawn out trial over it because they argued that it was pornographic and it violated obscenity laws. And then
they're like free speech.
No, I mean, they decided against the publisher initially, and then I think it was appealed, and then they sided with the publisher, and it was allowed to be published.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting. I agree. What is interesting about it?
Well, I mean, like, because it's made in America from an American man, right? Is it an American publisher?
Yeah.
First Amendment.
Cody, I don't think you understand the cultural climate, and this is why the Beat generation was actually very important and seen as very culturally influential. Because at the time that this was written, this book about gay sex and doing heroin, these were not things that were addressed in public. And there were specifically laws in place for media for you to not be able to depict or talk about these things. You like comic books, right?
Yes.
You ever heard of the Comic Code?
No. As I turn around and look at a poster behind me.
The Comics Code Authority. So that's a very good thing to point to for your neck of the woods. There was basically a very strict set of rules about what could or could not be depicted in forms of media. We did not always have free speech as it is in this country.
Well, and you couldn't make movies like previous to the 1960s. I think might be in the late 50s, but I'm probably getting ahead of myself. You couldn't make movies about like mobsters or like from their perspective or anything because there's like certain things that, like Liam is saying, is like obscenities, or they don't want to promote, quote unquote, the wrong idea, right? Like the idea of having free speech in the way of, yeah, I don't condone what this movie is saying, but I want to show the perspective of this. That didn't really exist because they didn't like separate what the movie is saying and what the author is trying to portray. Like, they don't have to be on the same plane of existence, but people were always underneath the impression that they were. And if you did a mob thriller from the perspective, like The Godfather, then they're like, oh, well, now you're endorsing mob lifestyles. We can't put that out in theaters because then people are just going to go out and shoot each other because they think that they're that impressionable. Like,
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
They didn't separate subject from intent. You know what they did separate? Man and wife in bed when depicted on screen. They always slept in two separate beds.
Oh, yeah.
That's true.
Stuff like that. I mean, it goes really far.
I never heard about this.
To write
thought
something
about
like
it.
this and to publish something like this. I mean, you read what we just read. This is disgusting by today's standards. I mean it. It's not. I think it should be published. I think you should be allowed to publish a book like this. But like the shit in this book is gross. It's nasty. It's gnarly.
Yeah. Just because it's published doesn't mean it's good.
Yeah. I think it has merit based solely on the fact that it is depicting a perspective that most people are never going to experience themselves. And at the time, it was a perspective that was prevalent. There were lots of junkies in the 50s.
Yeah.
But you didn't talk about it.
Right.
You sure as shit didn't fucking talk about it. If someone in your family was a junkie, you probably disowned them.
Yeah.
Or you didn't know, you know? And so I think it was important. And it was a big deal that there was a huge trial about this and that they did eventually manage to get it published without any kind of legal action, because we wouldn't be able to have media like this if there weren't people that put out things that were obscene, things that were...
There were people that needed to be the stepstones to...
Exactly. And Burroughs was a big part of that. This book specifically was a huge part of that. The Beats were a huge part of that. Allen Ginsberg may be a fucking wow, but he talked incredibly openly about being gay. And that was hugely important for a lot of other artists to be able to come out and be more open about their own lives and their own truth and identity, you know?
But that's why it upsets me, because I wish that came from someone who wasn't a...
Wow. It would be great. Yeah. It would be great. Yeah. And I wish that this book that really is very funny in a lot of parts, it's hard to read. It works for me if I turn my brain off and I just read and I don't like think about it, and it's really funny. But this book, I think, really does a lot of good in terms of just being truthful to the author, the artist. He was a fucked up guy. He was a junkie. He was gay. He was so many things that at the time were seen as very negative. I can only imagine what it must have been like to be one of those things and have that perspective finally like depicted and to be able to laugh at it and enjoy it. It was a huge deal that this was published, and we did not have free speech. The First Amendment has not always been the First Amendment as you know it.
Right.
Free speech for me, but not for thee, et cetera, et cetera.
And especially in context to the government, too.
Oh, yeah. I mean, even today, you know, we have things where we have terminology or things. I mean, you're talking, it's more of a private affair now. But, you know, all these modes of communication we have, like different forms of social media, they have words that are banned.
Yeah.
The AI that scrolls and detects if you say a particular word and then it takes down your video.
Or the Patriot Act, like they could they could basically interpret anything you say to be a terrorist plot and then
jail you indefinitely forever.
Right.
Don't even we should do a whole episode on that.
We should.
Honestly. I'd love to have a conversation with you about that.
Oh, yeah.
Do you read often, Liam?
Sometimes. I have not in recent years. My brain, no worky.
Yeah. This is for being sober.
What?
This is from being sober your entire life.
It is from being sober my entire life. Being sober my entire life, as I have been, and never having done any drugs or been hooked on any kind of anything, my brain works really well, you see. And so it's just so squeaky clean that sometimes it has to slow down and it, you know, take a rest every once in a while. Yeah, I used to love reading books. I just like my attention span and my time is limited. And like when I start reading a book, I get really sucked into it, which is actually why I kind of liked this one, because it's
is
hard.
That him on the back?
It's hard to read. Yeah, that's a picture of him. Take a
yeah.
So do you have like a genre that you really like, or do you like just read whatever like you found interesting?
I just read whatever. Well, you know, actually it's a good segue back into the magic, because I do like, in a sense, magical realism. You know, okay. I like books that are kind of realistic, but with slight elements of the paranormal or the magic or anything that kind of like keeps it grounded mostly. But I'm not like a huge fantasy guy.
Okay.
Sci-fi can be interesting, but it's really hard to read sci-fi that doesn't just play on the tropes that exist, things that are playing off of Star Trek or Star Wars, because those things are so iconic and so influential. So like, I don't have a particular genre that I like to read, but I like just books that have sort of a sense of wonder or mysticism about them, which is why
like literal substance to it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's kind of why Burroughs fascinates me, because he is a very fucked up guy and a troubled guy, but also he has struggled with a lot of things and he has some really unique views. And he's not a wow. He's kind of wow. Here's the thing. Jack Kerouac's the only one that I haven't talked to and called a wow so far. I don't think he's a wow. He's the one I know the least about, but he's also doesn't fit in with the other two guys at all because he's Catholic. He got a football scholarship to college. He did serve in the Merchant Marines, I think, and he got honorably discharged, not because he wanted to be, but because I think he had some issue after witnessing some people get fucked up or something. So they're like, "You're crazy." It just doesn't really make sense. Like he just doesn't fit in with the other two. Yeah, really.
I would just be worried about if you're in a crowd like that and you are seemingly the only like closest to being normal one. I don't know. There might be things there that we're not seeing.
Maybe he's like the most fucked up one.
I highly doubt that.
What if he was a serial killer that had a necrophilia problem?
I don't think he was a serial killer, but he may have
all day long.
I don't think he was a serial killer, but he may have been slightly schizophrenic because he did say that when he was a kid, he had a vision of being visited by, I think, an angel or God speaking to him saying, "Hey, you'll die in a really painful way, but you'll do a lot of good," or something like that.
By dying in a painful way?
No. You'll live a life basically of.
Why would you drop that on somebody? Like, why couldn't you just leave the end part out?
How familiar are you with God?
I'm not too familiar.
Have you ever seen like the biblically accurate depictions of angels before?
Yeah, I have.
I want to be clear with you that God is not a nice man.
Oh, what? Are you telling me that he flooded the earth?
God is not kind at all. And he does work in mysterious ways.
Like, if you were going to drop a vision, and even if you knew, like, sure, you can't do anything about the way the guy's going to die, I'd be like, hey, dude, you're going to do a lot of sick stuff. It's going to be sweet.
This is the guy.
Have at it.
This is the guy who asked someone to kill their own son to prove their loyalty.
I guess that's true.
And then was like,
"Just kidding,
bitch, you were about to do it,
dude. You thought,
get fucked, nerd.
You thought.
Oh, you love me? You love me?
Yeah, it's basically like a bro. I made you say you loved me. That's gay. That's so gay. Anyway, you're good. You don't have to kill your son.
He's all good.
His hands are just covered in blood.
Yeah, he's got the meat cleaver like wound up, like ready to. He's like, are you fucking serious?
But
it's Nicolas Cage about to smack that kid.
So our relationship is never recovering from this.
So Burroughs was all about magic. You know, he liked magic. And I think this is a really interesting thing about him is that late in his life, he joined this sect called the Illuminates of Thanateros, which is a chaos magic group that was formed in England originally. I think in the late 70s is when they but they formalized it in the 80s. And I want to say he joined the North American sect because there is a North American sect. You guys know anything about chaos magic?
No.
Have you been practicing your fireball this weekend, Jeffrey? It's not very
Fireball.
good.
So chaos magic teaches that the essence of magic is that perceptions are conditioned by beliefs and that the world as we perceive it can be changed by deliberately changing those beliefs.
I mean, that sounds like you're just changing your mindset, which would lead to you changing your intent, which would lead to you trying to put effort into going forth into completing your goals. So I guess there's like on the lowest level, there's some merit to that.
So I think the step that you're missing in that explanation of it is just that there's an actual tangible effect on the world itself outside of your own influence. Yes. Just by belief, the power of belief, which I think is an interesting idea. And I'm not going to say that I believe it, but I think there's definitely merit to the concept, especially from what you just described of like you are just by changing your intention, changing the actions you would take and the way you would exist within that space. But they have some very interesting ideas. But Burroughs was well known in the chaos magic community because he designed two techniques, one of which he used to write, but he insisted that it wasn't just a creative technique. It was actually a technique akin to scrying or divination. So like the ability to just see stuff. And that was called the cut up technique, which is basically where you take writing that exists, on pages and you cut it up and then you mix it up.
So he's just making YouTube poops, literary style.
Literally, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. He made literary YouTube poops. That is
No, I was going to akin it to like.
That's a beautiful way to put it on. I didn't even think of that.
I was going to say like serial killer, fucking cut up magazine, fucking ransom notes.
Except in this context, you're just taking paragraphs and you're hoping it makes sense.
He made the original Mama Luigi.
lamp oil, rope,
But
bombs.
yes, so this is a basically he saw it as a way to like connect with reality and foresee events just by doing this.
Okay, so he's predicting the future by making story. Dude, we should try this.
I think we should try. I genuinely think we should try.
As upset I would be to cut up a whole bunch of books, I think we should get like sacrificial books.
We
and
could
then-
make our own writing.
That's true.
We could just
do that,
write our own stuff.
And then
we
we
could
could
just write our own thing
yeah,
and then
pass
put
them
it in.
and then like cut them up and then we should
do that?
try this.
We
I
can
think
do that
this
in between records if you want.
yeah, I think this would be that might be a little bit. I'd be a little bit put on the spot to come up with something that I could.
you can
tangibly
just
put.
write whatever comes to your mind. That's the thing. It doesn't. You don't have to be creative. You can just write whatever's in your brain at the time.
I actually have a test. A test sentence for keyboards. Do you guys have this?
No.
When you go in like Best Buy or whatever, there's a bunch of keyboards, and if you want to test how the keyboard feels, I have a test sentence. I'm contemplating whether I want to tell you what it is, but that's the sentence I use to like type out on
I
the
usually
keyboard.
just type "ow, ow, ow, my penis hurts" just to make sure
Like
that
the RoboCop.
Balls hurt.
But yeah, I don't know
balls
why.
hurt.
Ever since I could just like go
Fuck whoever took my username.
wait
God
for
damn
what?
it. I had a username in a video game that was balls hurt, but they refresh it every once in a while, so you have to change your name. I couldn't change it back to balls
What
hurt.
game was it?
I don't want to talk about it. I don't
So-
play it anymore.
It's a
You played it
hentai
with
game.
me. No, it's not a hentai game.
Was it?
It was Escape from Tarkov.
Oh,
Yeah.
I played it the one time I played with you.
Yeah. My name was Balls Hurt. You don't remember that?
I do remember that.
You
now, yeah.
influenced somebody then.
Why?
Because someone nobody just makes, I mean, aside from like maybe you, right? But like nobody makes that their username on a whim after
do.
the games. Yeah, I know. But there wasn't just some random Latvian kid that got the fucking, the idea of I'm going to do this. Somebody saw you in it because the name is
You're
displayed,
right. Some
right?
Russian bastard got brained by me. One of the few times I managed to kill somebody in that game.
And then they were
I
like,
got killed by Balls Hurt. I'm going to wait for the next refresh and steal his name.
dude,
Bastard.
that's all logically I can think of.
That game doesn't work right now.
Really? I haven't played it in years. Probably 2 years.
Joe plays that game.
Of course he does.
If I could have
Religiously.
access to like
You would love that game.
well, so I want to play it, but I think that the barrier for entry, I know they wipe stuff like you're saying.
Yep.
But like, I think like it's just, there's so much to it. I don't know if I even want to get into that. If I could just have access to like all the accessories and the guns and everything just to mess around with them to do whatever. Cause like being able to put it anywhere on like a Picatinny slot is so cool to me. Cause that's something as a kid I wish you could do with attachments.
There's like a shooting range in the game.
Yeah. Well, can you use everything though? And then you can
Just
just
to have it, but yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, well, that's my problem. I wish that like they had just it was all available to you, and you could just put whatever you wanted on.
I bet
onto
there's
it and
mods
fuck around.
for it for like in like Arma.
I bet there is. Yeah,
I think you can do an offline shooting range thing too, where you can have everything. I
yeah.
think.
See that
But-
I would do nothing but that. I would just mess around in that.
Do you want to play? Do you have a computer that can play the game?
Probably, yeah.
You want my login? I'll just give you my login. I'm not using it.
Does it go on Steam?
No.
Oh, really?
It's its
Does
own
it-
separate launcher.
Oh,
Yeah. It's a Russian made game.
yeah.
So it's jank.
It doesn't
Jake
work
is out.
right now.
Anyway, this is a diversion we don't need to have. Chaos magic. Chaos magic. We should do the cut up technique. I think we could, maybe we could divine our future or something that will happen in the future. God forbid something terrible happens.
Something terrible has already happened.
That's true.
I feel like for it to work though, we can't do it in between recordings because it has to be writings that like exist over a span of longer time to make it more interesting. Because if we do everything within relation to what we're talking about here, it might have like a point of origin.
What if
that
we
makes
promise
sense.
not to talk about here? Talk about something unrelated that we haven't discussed today. We could do that. You have a printer here, right, Cody?
I do not have a printer.
Oh, you don't?
No.
Oh, then we can't
It's
do
like the
it.
third time you've asked me in the last like month and a half.
Get a fucking printer, bro.
Why?
So that we can print stuff.
I need to get a printer.
Podcast printer. Put it on the podcast card.
I wish we had a
Put
podcast
a
card.
learner's permit charge card.
But anyway, whether we do it in between the recording or not, I think we should do it. I think it would
Yeah.
be fun.
Yeah, I agree. I think it would be fun.
Can I recommend something?
Yeah, what?
We can cut this if you think it's stupid as fuck. Should we write like a smut?
Cody, you literally caused a tendon in my neck to tense up so much.
Was that the end of the sentence, Cody?
Yeah.
Should we write like a smut?
Yeah. Like as like a group.
Why do you want to do that?
When you say like
I've
a smut,
I've never
when
read
you
it.
say
I've
like
never-
a smut, are you talking about a romance novel or are you talking about like what's in these pages? Because
No,
I'd
he's
like you to
talking
take
about
this-
like literary.
I'd like you to take this
porn.
book again and open it up in
No,
another one.
not that.
Open it up in another page. Don't read it, but explain what you were proposing.
The four of us sit down.
Mhm.
We come up with a scenario, like a setting, you know, all that stuff. And we have some like exposition and all this stuff. And then we have the characters and then the relationship between the characters. in a sexual manner.
What prompted this?
In a sexual manner.
It'd be funny.
Yeah, what prompted that, actually?
American Housewife.
He's gonna blow right past it.
I want to revisit this later. I want to find
Put a
out.
pin in it.
Why don't it have an electric eye, the box flip open when I see me and hand itself to the automat handyman? Is this Codsworth?
Yeah. Codsworth fucking himself.
So this book actually, I don't know. Did I keep a note about the book?
He's
One
Southern.
second. Okay, can I read some quotes for you guys about this book?
Like reviewers?
So, a reviewer called John Wayne called it a prolonged scream of hatred and disgust.
John Wayne.
And not that one. And the merest trash, not worth a second glance. Lionel Abel compared the work to a film that spliced together pornography with footage of Nazi concentration camps,
Jesus.
writing, "Now it is foolish, I think, to justify naked lunch as literature. Its descriptions of hallucinatory states under drug addiction are neither beautiful nor exquisite, nor brilliant nor informative. I even wonder whether they are true. I think they're true. I think it's all true." And then somebody else said, if the publishers had deliberately set out to discredit the cause of literary freedom and innovation, they could have hardly done it more effectively. But yes, William Burroughs believed in magic. And another technique that he had was actually called the playback technique. The crux of this is essentially go to a location where something you don't like is happening or somebody you don't like, a target or location, record audio of the location, then go back on a later day and keep revisiting it, replaying the audio you recorded the first time at lower subliminal levels.
Why?
According to Burroughs, this was the way of recording the target's own base shittiness and then playing it back to him at subliminal levels.
What's the point
fuck?
of
That
this?
makes no sense.
Because it will bring them misfortune or harm.
Sounds like bro needed to go to therapy.
Yeah. This is
So this is like peak junkie schizo, peak junkie schizo thinking, and I love it. I love it on principle because it's a thinking that I can so wonderfully recognize as exactly what it is, and I think we need more thinking like this in the world. And if this is the basis of chaos magic, then I would like to formally announce my intention to join the Illuminates of Thanateros because I got some ideas. I got some ideas for concepts.
If you
Can
were,
we find out if they're still around?
They are still around. They have an
are still
application on their
around?
website, and I'm going to fill it out.
Oh my God.
is there a yearly fee?
No, but they do ask you to tell a joke when you join.
What's going to be your joke?
Well, I don't want to say it on mic.
We'll cut it.
Okay. 2 peanuts are walking down the street.
One of them was assaulted.
Nah, my man. See, he got it. Right?
Yeah.
This, got him.
See, my favorite jokes of that are, what is it? Do you know that diarrhea is hereditary?
It runs in the family.
It runs in your genes.
Genes.
It doesn't make sense with that one. Wait, I actually like that better. That might be my joke. Do you know that diarrhea is hereditary? It runs in your family. Do you know diarrhea is hereditary? My dad's got it.
It's just a statement at that point. What did the cannibal get when he showed up to the party late?
What?
The cold shoulder. Yeah.
Hungry.
Yeah. What about the man that was eating did you hear about the man that was eating batteries? He will soon
He
be
got really
charged.
sick. Okay. All right. Can we go back? I know we've done a while here, but can we talk about the movie a little bit? Because I want to talk about the movie. I know I gave so much fucking background, but I gave that background to give you context. Cody, I know you did a little research yourself.
A little.
And you read about the Joan Vollmer incident, I presume.
Correct. And
Did
that's
that
it.
affect how you felt about the movie when you watched it?
So I watched like half of it, right? And I was like, I need to take a break from this.
Yeah, you're having trouble with it kept buffering. You said
Yeah,
it was really
for
quiet.
some weird reason, it just buffered forever.
Because the fucking web browser was trying to make sense of this shit.
Yeah, basically.
I'm reading I just want to drop this and I swear I'm not going to read anymore. This fucking line is, they'll hear this fart on Jupiter.
Hell
That rocks,
yeah.
though. Wait, that rocks. That's been published over 1 million times. Those words.
Yeah. Sending is like atomic power. If properly harnessed, at this point, an anal technician mixes a bicarbonate of soda and pulls the switch that reduces the Earth to cosmic dust. Belch. They'll hear this fart on Jupiter.
So the book has The book has like a loose plot about like 4 different factions that are vying for control of Interzone. And, you know, there's different interpretations about what they represent, but the Senders specifically are a group of people who want to control people with mind control. There's also the Liquefactionists who want to liquidate every person.
So Evangelion,
essentially. Yeah.
They want to turn everybody into orange juice.
But Cody, what were you saying about the movie?
Yeah, it was like buffering it forever. It took me a long time and I was like, whatever. So I stopped watching it and then I was like, all right, well, I'm going to go take a nap in a hammock. And then I came back to it and I was like, not today. And then the next day at work, I was like, I saw that it had something to do with a book. Let me figure out what the deal with the book is. And then I found out that it's like based off of his junkie binge for decades and how he killed his wife.
Was this before or after you witnessed the child may or may not being kidnapped by his may or may not be mother?
The story you imparted at the beginning, unrelated to the movie?
Before.
So Cody's like contemplating all this and is like, I need to palate cleanse with some Fallout Shelter, and then witnessed one of the very scenes from the movie probably being like enacted in real life. And it's like, oh my God,
no.
Chaos magic is real.
Yeah, no. So I read about that and I was like, oh, okay. And then I went back to it last night. Yeah, I finished.
So how many days did you take a hiatus for?
2? Couldn't have been that long because I only sent the link initially on
Thursday.
Yeah.
I watched it Thursday.
Yeah.
But I feel like it doesn't matter with this movie. Like you could take a break and it wouldn't really matter because there's no continuity.
There's continuity in the movie, but you sent
it Wednesday night. I watched it Thursday morning. Yeah. I skipped Friday and I finished it last night.
Yeah. I think the best way to watch the movie is with it in mind as a biographical picture, as a biopic about William Burroughs, and then just also accept all the weird shit in it because it's a Cronenberg movie.
I kept waiting for, like, from the very beginning, I was like, at some point he's going to wake up back in his apartment. But now knowing the backstory to it, the travel was probably literal. I don't think it was him imagining he was going these places.
It was literal.
Yeah.
And you did not say it, but the end of the movie. So in the movie, did you get to the point where he meets the woman who looks like his wife?
Yeah.
So the end of the movie has him rescue her from, I don't know if you say rescue, but he finds her in the clutches of Dr. Benway. And you should watch this, even though I'm telling you what happens. And at the end of the movie, he basically ends up working for Dr. Benway as an agent. And he goes to Annexia, which is like a country with a bordering interzone. I don't know what the real world parallel would be, but he gets stopped by border agents at the border. And they're like, what do you do? You know, who are you? What do you do for work? He's like, I'm a writer. And he shows them a pen. And they're like, write something. And he's kind of like,
well, the big thing is like, I can't write without Joan.
Yeah.
Was like a big part of the story towards the end.
So then when they're like, write something, he turns back and looks at Joan, who's in the back seat laid up because she's been through a lot of abuse throughout the, ensuing parts of the movie. And he says, I think it's time for that old William Tell act. And he shoots her in the head.
What the?
She takes a glass, she puts it on her head, and he shoots her in the head.
And then the Border Patrol agents go,
welcome to Annexia.
Welcome to Annexia.
And he's got a tear in his eye, and
what the fuck?
And then rolls credits.
What do you mean, what the fuck?
It just, I don't know. I'm sure someone can try to apply some deeper meaning to that, but it just seems like a bunch of gobbledygook to me.
It's very straightforward, Austin. If I may, I'm not trying to talk down. But so he didn't start really writing until after the William Tell incident. Mm-hmm. So in a way, him killing Joan Vollmer was a catalyst, if not to start him writing, to get him into the situations that started him writing. Mm-hmm. And I think this is something that he kind of grappled with throughout his life and throughout his career, as like, I wouldn't have really started without what happened with Joan. I mean, he had written a bit prior to that, but never anything that was published and never anything, it wasn't like he did it seriously. It's like at the beginning of the movie when Bill is sitting down with the 2 other guys in the diner and they're like, you really should write. And he's like, I
haven't done. I gave up writing when I was 10.
Yes, exactly. So I think the beginning and the end are a very clear like message of, this pain and this horrifying thing is put on the page as a writer. You put it all up there.
Okay.
That's
maybe
if
I had watched it would have made more logical sense to me. But yeah, it just seems.
Yes. I mean, the killing Joan in the beginning of the movie is what thrusts him into Interzone and into all of this espionage stuff with the weird aliens and the bug typewriter and everything. But yeah, I mean, I think if you watch it with context, it's definitely much different. I watched the movie without context. I knew it was an adaptation of a book, but I was like, I don't know what the fuck this is about. I don't know who this is. I watched it and then I was like, I need to know more. I need to know what I just watched and understand it. And I really appreciated the movie so much more after I knew the context.
I'm with you on that one.
Yeah.
When I stopped watching it, I found out a little bit more about like his history and how like it's like kind of loosely about his life as like in like whatever.
It is literally a biopic about him with elements just ripped from his book to make it more of like a, fantastical, gross narrative.
I was like, oh, this movie is way more interesting now.
Well, I'm glad you thought that because when you texted me the first time, you said it was a chore to watch it. I was like, ooh. Okay.
Yeah. And you went, ooh. Ugh.
I'm not a winner. I'm not picking winners, you guys.
No, I think after finding all that stuff out, I was like, oh, this is actually kind of a good movie. Still not a great movie, but I mean, I enjoyed watching more of it.
I think it's a great movie. I don't think it's a pleasant movie.
No, definitely not.
And I think some movies can be great.
I think my favorite part was when he was trying to have sex with Joan Frost, whose husband is Bilbo Baggins. And the typewriter turns into like
the weird naked.
And it starts like flopping on them.
On top of them, and like it's like fucking them. It's like dick comes out, and you're like, what the fuck? And then the maid comes in and starts whipping it out the window, and then it jumps off the balcony and kills itself. And then Tom Frost, Bilbo Baggins, comes up and he's like, what the fuck? And it's just a typewriter on the ground.
Well, when I first saw him, I thought for a moment that he was the guy that played Palpatine.
Oh, you thought it was Ian McDermott?
Yep. I looked at him, I was like, is that Palpatine? So I had so many moments where I had false lookalikes. Like we had Zac Efron, we had fucking Emperor Palpatine. There was another guy. I don't remember if I wrote in my notes or not. I mean, obviously Alex Murphy.
The RoboCop.
Super distracting. Yeah. Oh, and the pistol.
Your move, creep.
The pistol that he used to shoot his wife is a CZ-27, if anyone was wondering. And I love that the pawn shop guy called it commie trash. That made me very happy too.
Things like this are like cultural points that I'm not familiar with. It's really interesting to sort of learn about them because they are important for a reason. And living in the world that we live in today, where you can just Google anything and, it's like really quick to just spark notes, whatever.
Right.
It can be very informative to actually take the time to visit these things and understand why they're important.
Yeah.
And I think context helps, which is, I know this movie might have been trouble without it, but.
Well, yeah, because I think that's what's weird about it is that I normally love stuff that's weird like this. Like I said, Jacob's Ladder, Silent Hill is a huge one because there's a lot of weird, grotesque imagery in Silent Hill in the way that there's characters that they talk about sexual abuse and everything. And there's gross, disgusting shit like how the fucking typewriter had basically a dick coming out of it, which it makes you uncomfortable, but it makes sense. This movie doesn't apply that sort of contextual sense in a way that makes sense to me. So that's why I was like, it was such a slog because I kept waiting for a small bit of like reward of, hey, this is kind of what's going on. And then like with Silent Hill, it's like same deal. Like fucking James kills his wife and then goes to Silent Hill. And there's a woman who's named, I don't remember what her name is, but he goes and she looks exactly the same as his wife. And he has like kind of the same deal with her, right? Like there's kind of flirtatiousness going on, but she never like lets it go anywhere. And there's kind of leading in place. It's like, it's all very similar in that regard.
It sounds like this might genuinely
it might have been an influence in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so like, I'm very surprised that it was something that I found to be a chore, but I think that's the small thing that's missing is that tiny little bit of payoff where they give you a little bit of nugget of context that makes it when you like in Silent Hill, when you replay it, you're like, oh, this makes so much more sense.
I think if you rewatch it, it'll make a lot more sense. The butthole stuff, the penis stuff, you have to understand that as a stylistic thing. It's a cross between the elements of this book, which are disgusting, and just Cronenberg's body horror stuff.
Yeah.
I think so when the bug comes up and starts talking out of its asshole behind its wings, it's just, oh my God, I hated when you're seeing it talk. And then when it does the close up on the butthole mouth, you can see little hairs.
Yeah.
I was like, oh,
it's awful. Those bugs and typewriters reminded me so much of Starship Troopers.
Yeah, because I would be surprised if they didn't use very similar like
texture
prosthetic sort of deal. Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, when the bug showed up the first time, I'm like, I say kill them all.
Dude, like there was one moment where it looked pretty real when the one typewriter was eating the other one.
Oh,
and
yeah.
When it jumped off and then like lurched at it, I was like, oh God, that looked kind of real.
Some amazing special effects.
it like grossed me out. I was like, that looked kind of real, dude. Like I don't want to watch that.
I think the only part of it that doesn't really hold up in my mind is that cage scene where they do the close up on the faces. I'm like, it's like kind of cool animatronic that they have, but it's very clearly like not.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I just, it is interesting. And I'm curious if, like, having familiarized with myself with this, if I'll be able to sort of see the influence. Like you said, Silent Hill might have had some sort of influence.
Yeah.
I mean, like the killing your wife over and over again thing is not from the book, but that's from the movie. And the idea that that's something that's been pulled into a horror video game a couple years later is pretty cool.
Maria, that's her name. Sorry.
Yeah.
Nice job. Great pull.
Oh, by the way, the Simpsons joke, I'll probably cut this, but the Simpsons joke is, I think it's Nelson and Milhouse and Bart managed to get into an R-rated movie. They get I think they have like a fake ID. And
that's the first one they go see.
Well, they pick it based on its title. So the joke, it's a 5-second joke funny. Where they walk out of the theater and Nelson says, I can think of at least 2 things wrong with that title. Such a stupid but good joke. Anyway, yeah. How'd you like this movie comparatively to the other movies that I've had you watch?
Well, based on the fact that I didn't watch Zohan last time,
that's true.
Since it came out, good.
Yeah,
we did watch Swiss Army Man, which I did like, but we didn't release that one.
Yeah.
But I mean, Phantom Menace is really good. I'd probably give it 3 out of 4. It's like 3rd out of the 4 that you've made us watch.
I was gonna say that's a weird rating metric. I didn't realize it was out of the movies. I thought it was just like out of 4.
Yeah, I was thinking you were doing
Phantom Menace would be 1, Swiss Army Man, Naked Lunch, Zohan's last.
I don't think you can put them on the list since you didn't watch it. So,
I can because I have seen it.
I think maybe you have to watch it, rewatch it to get it up there proper.
Yeah, I'll rewatch Naked Lunch. Cody will watch.
Yes. Then we'll come back. We'll have a real conversation about both together at the same time.
We'll call. He might be on break from his trial. If we call Adam right now, do you think you'll be able to rank them?
Yeah, actually, let's do that. That's not a bad idea. One moment. I think I'm still connected via Bluetooth here. Let me see.
Yeah, I think they're in recess right now for the court proceedings.
Yeah, they took a lunch.
They broke for Naked Lunch.
They do Naked Lunch at the court.
Yeah.
Well, that's what the stenographer is doing, right? It's the typewriter.
Oh, they're always naked.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hello, hey. Adam.
Hello, boys.
Can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you too.
Can you hear me?
I can hear all 3 of you.
Perfect. Hey, Adam, I have a quick question.
Fire away.
Out of all of the movies that Liam has made us watch for all of the topics for him,
can you rank them?
Can you rank them? Like rate them, like 1 to 4?
Okay. So I would probably put the one we just watched at number 2, only surpassed by Swiss Army Man at number 1. I really enjoyed that.
What about the Phantom Menace?
Phantom Menace. I'd probably put it around like 2 or 3-ish area personally, like a tie there. And then, Twilight. And then last but not least, the fucking Zohan. That movie sucked ass.
Any quick thoughts on Naked Lunch?
I thought it was quite surreal, and honestly, I was really enjoying how everybody was just kind of accepting of how bizarre and wacky that world was.
Wacky and fun.
All the nonsense in that film is just truly accepted as normalcy, and I think that really helps sell the vibe.
Well, that's reality as we see it, I guess. Yeah, we just wanted to call and get your opinion real quick before we wrap up our episode. We'll probably be calling you again very shortly, or we have called you again in the past. Because we're definitely recording these in order. All right, Adam, I hope you're not busy because we're going to be bugging you. Okay, we got to wrap up this.
Yeah, the pod track died and we took a quick break. Adam said that he's doing well.
Yep. The legal proceedings should be wrapping up soon.
Yep.
I want to read. Well, first I want to ask you a question, Austin. Are you a podcaster?
Not by nature, no.
Okay. Just checking. And then I'm going to read a quote from the book to send us out here. Now I opened to a random page, so I hope you know there's very little meaning behind this, but I think we can find meaning in all words, honestly. All right. You poop on my party. AJ looks at him, face remote as limestone. Up a your ass, you liquefying racial slur I won't say. I'll end it there.
I thought you were doing a Jar Jar Binks thing on account of my watch.
No, we haven't even mentioned your watch.
We haven't. Yeah, Liam gave me a watch. It's a Jar Jar Binks watch from a original Phantom Menace merch. I'm very happy with it.
Yeah. I'm glad you like it. I bet there's something in this book about a Jar Jar Binks watch. He could have been,
he goes in grave detail about the watch he's wearing. It's like, it was a Jar Jar Binks watch with a 70s themed strap. It said Jar Jar.
This was written in the 50s, so it would be wild if he was predicting a character from 1999 and then also talking about styles of watches from the 70s. Wow.
One can only hope.
Well, hey,
he was just using chaos theory.
He used the cut-up technique. That's what he did to scry for the future and find Jar Jar Binks as a real thing. Anyway, I hope that everybody watches this movie that listens to this because it's really fucking weird. You have to be willing to watch a little bit of unpleasantness and be okay with grossness, but it is fascinating. And I encourage anybody to go out and learn more about the Beat Generation because they are some weird fucks. And I myself am going to go do more research on Jack Kerouac and report back because he's that Catholic golden boy that America was always looking for. So, any closing thoughts from you guys?
I wanted to really like this the way through. Like I said, it just was a grind to watch. So I'll watch it again. We'll see what's going on. I want to be intrigued by this. That's basically where I'm at.
So I like the movie. We haven't there's a scene at the end where there's they're in the warehouse. That was interesting. I think that was probably the most interesting part of the movie for me.
You know what I realized though when I was rewatching it? That warehouse set is used at the very beginning when he's walking through the market.
Yep.
I'm like, wait a minute, this is the same from the end. This is the same set.
Yeah, no, I really liked it. Other than that, especially knowing the context.
Yeah.
Other than that, I don't think I really would have liked the movie.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, it's not a pleasant movie, and if you don't like Cronenberg shit, this is not going to be your cup of tea.
No.
It's like Cronenberg with a couple extra puckered assholes thrown in.
Yeah.
Which is, always nice for those of us with more creative tastes.
And he rubbed the bug powder on
He did.
for way too long.
Okay.
Way too long.
I think that was about when I knew I would really love the movie, was him doing that. Him being like, the bug being like, rub some powder on my lips, Bill, please. And then he does it, and he's like fingering the outside of the asshole mouth, and he's like, sure, I guess. Yeah. And then it cuts to him going home to his wife, asking him to do the exact same thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just the association, sexuality depicted in this movie is so dingy and disgusting.
He also comes home to his buddy fucking his wife.
I thought that was going to be a big deal. And then when it wasn't, I was like, oh, this is definitely a drug den. Makes perfect sense.
Yeah. They just do drugs and fucking.
Yep. Yeah.
Fuck your buddy's wife.
Yeah. I didn't realize the extent of what was happening until he was like, no, I'm good. I'm just going to shut myself in the bedroom here. And I was like, oh, it's one of those.
Yeah.
I'm good. I'm just going to go do my bug drugs in the bed alone.
He finished, but I didn't because I'm on the drug.
I don't need to come. I'm on fucking bug juice or whatever.
Yeah.
That's a real thing.
It's a drink, isn't it? Bug juice.
I don't know what bug juice is, but not needing to come because you're on bug juice. That's for real. It's like coming all the time. Bug powder.
Liam, do you have any closing thoughts?
Yeah, I think this movie is bug nuts. No pun intended. I think it's wonderful. I think it is unpleasant in all the best ways and funny and weird. One thing that I really look for in movies is imaginative, unusual things. And I think this definitely fits the fucking bill. And I don't like biographies. So this was a really sneaky way for fucking, if I ever meet David Cronenberg, I'm going to say, Mr. I'm mad.
And he's like, I got you to watch a biography, you fucking loser.
Lured in by the bugs with the anuses from mouths. And then you have to sit and watch a biography of a rotten old junkie gay man. I'm kidding. But I think this movie was a really great window into me learning about something really interesting in the real world. And there's not a lot of movies involving bug powder that you could say have done that for you or me. I guess.
Movies are powerful things.
Movies are a great way to open yourself up to other things because movies are very accessible. Whereas something like the book version of this is maybe not. And that's understandable.
Imagine if you're being like, what if you're like illiterate or blind?
You know, the funny thing is I didn't pick this book up after I watched the movie. I watched the movie, read about him, then decided that I had to pick the book up because of the context that I learned. You said, what if I was blind? Sorry, I just breezed past that.
You can't read. Well,
I mean, I can't read anyway, but that's why a book like this is good for me because you really aren't supposed to read stuff like this. Really, honestly.
It's not good for your mental health.
In Timbuktu, I once saw an Arab boy who could play a flute with his ass, and the fairies told me he was really an individual in bed.
Like, you know what?
That's a quote.
This, when I hear this stuff.
Liam pulled that from real life.
Sorry, that is a personal anecdote.
When I hear this, it almost makes the, you know, like the crazy anti-weed smoking ad that Adam had sent to us.
The one on the couch?
Yeah. The girl, like, or the dude's like farting into a fucking tuba or something.
Nope.
And you don't remember that?
No.
That there's a fucking wild ad of like someone, both parties are naked and someone's farting into a tuba and the other person's like is fucking like sitting there like smelling it or whatever. And in the bottom it says like, does this look normal to you? No, question mark. Well, on reefer, it does. And when I fucking hear excerpts from this, it almost makes me believe like, yeah, it kind of does fucking make sense. Like, it almost makes me believe the ad campaigns, dude. Like when you read shit like that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, I've already made a spirited encouragement to our audience to go do drugs in a previous episode. So
The Twilight episode.
yeah, I'll let you guys, you know, I didn't even realize that's an interesting connection that I picked another thing which has
That's
a
what I thought
genesis
this was, yeah.
involving heavy drug use. And you know what? I stand by what I said in the Twilight episode. Go out there, get fucked up on every little fucking thing that you can find and make something worthwhile in this world. Because if this guy can write a book where he just talks about buttholes and cum and stuff and doing drugs and it can be influential and important, nothing is off the table.
I don't want to give.
So just know that special thing that you have to give to the world is inside you. It might just need a little chemical encouragement to come out.
I just imagine like the junkie that sits out on the divider with like a sign is sitting there and he's like, yeah, dude, fucking, I'm making a difference, bro. This is fucking, I would never be the real me if I wasn't out here doing this shit, bro. Like, so I don't want to push that encouragement too much.
I am. And when you inevitably do that, I want you to write us an email to Cody's real email at gmail.com.
And that's Cody with a K.
Cody with a K, Kodys, real email at gmail.com. I want you to send it to me. I'll read it. I'll think about replying and then I won't. And
Okay.
I'll have drafts up the wazoo.
Like drafts of you responding to emails?
Yeah, I'm gonna write all the emails, but I'm just never gonna hit send.
Wow. So it'll kind of be like the Notebook. Like,
Yeah.
Like your mother-in-law is holding all your email drafts, but not sending them out to all the readers who are kind enough to submit their artwork to us. Well, I want to encourage people to write into us at the email for real. And if you have any suggestions or comments about our content or things you want us to cover, or if you have some weird fucked up shit that you wrote on drugs or that you made on drugs, please forward it to us and we will talk about it. That's really all I got. I feel very inspired by this movie, this book, the fact that this man was able to make such a mark being such a weird fuck up. And we're going to do the cut up technique and we will tell you about our future readings very soon.
Perfect.
Until next time. Bye.
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 You've been listening to Learner's Permit. Thanks for listening. We hope you learned something today. Until next time, goodbye.